So if you're like me, you're probably tired of airlines telling you what you can and can't take with you when you go on vacation. And if that's the case, then this video might be the best news that you've heard in a long time. Hi, I'm Alan, and welcome to the Pleasure Tripping channel, where getting there is half the adventure. Today, I'm going to give you a huge list of things that you can and maybe should take with you on your next vacation when you go by train. So, all aboard. I'm here to tell you that you can take it with you. You know, the airline industry is constantly telling us what we can't take with us when we go on vacation. Kind of like that old adage, you can't take it with you when you go. My dad was a Baptist minister, and he always had another way to say it. He said, I've never seen a U-Haul behind a hearse. Well, I'm here to tell you that when you travel on Amtrak, the phrase, you can take it with you, has a whole new meaning. Much of what is restricted by the airline industry is perfectly acceptable when you travel by rail. And today we're going to talk about a lot of the things that you can take with you and what maybe you should take with you when you travel by train. Now, just a reminder here, this is one video in a series about traveling by rail. And what I mean by traveling by rail is everything that's involved, everything from planning your trip to buying your ticket and, getting ready for your trip and packing for your trip. And I've traveled a lot in trains, both here and in Europe. And in Europe, train travel is more common than air travel. But in the U.S., fewer people have ever traveled by train. It's something that, today's generation just can't identify with because they didn't grow up traveling by train. Everybody grew up traveling in a plane or in a car. And although there is a plethora of information out there, even on YouTube, about train travel, I have never seen a step-by-step guide to help you get ready for your train trip, to help especially new travelers who have never traveled on a train as they prepare for their first train journey. So I decided to it was high time to put together a collection that somebody should accept the challenge of putting together all of the information necessary for somebody getting ready for their first trip on train in a single video series. In fact, I'm in the stages of preparing for a huge trip of my own this summer. I'll be traveling 7,000 miles through 15 different states, and I'm going to be taking you with me along on that trip because I'm going to be sharing videos and live updates both here on YouTube and on my Facebook page. And this is a series of everything you need to know about preparing for your first trip on Amtrak, planning your destination, buying your tickets, and now giving you some practical advice and some guidelines on what you might need to take with you when you go. So right now would be the perfect time for you to click on the subscribe button. Now that will make sure that you get advance notice of new videos that are coming out. And if at the end of this video, you end up with more questions about preparing for your first Amtrak trip, getting ready to leave, then leave a comment. Send me an email. Ask me your questions, and I will make sure to get back to you. And who knows, maybe I'll even include the answer to your question on the next video. But before we actually begin our planning here, a bit of a disclaimer, okay? Packing is kind of a personal thing. All right, everybody's got their own method about how to fold your shirts, how to pack how many pairs of socks to take with you, how many pairs of shoes. Everybody's got their little tips and tricks, and I'll leave that to the packers. But There are all kinds of packers, from those who don't, there are some people who don't leave home without an umbrella and a parachute. And then there are the packers who they'll go on a month-long trip with nothing but a toothbrush and a backpack. So I'm no packing expert, but we're going to touch on the things that you probably should pack and how much luggage you can take along with you, even though the airlines tell you that you can't take in any more than a small carry-on. And we're going to give you some helpful suggestions on how to prepare for your very first trip by rail. And I'll be the first to admit, okay, this is not going to be a comprehensive list, to say the least. I don't know all the tricks in the trade. Just some helpful tips that I have discovered as I get ready to take my trips that make my trips a lot easier. And a lot of this information I've learned the hard way. I packed things that I should have left at home that ended up being nothing but a burden. And I left behind things that I really needed. So these are things that are really practical. So let's get started. So in this series, we're going to talk about the things that you can and should take with you when you go on a trip on Amtrak. So the first thing we're going to talk about is luggage. I think that seems to be high on the priority list of things that people want to know when they want to know what they can take with them. They want to know how many pieces of luggage you can take with you. So let's do a comparison. Here's the luggage that most airlines, the average airlines in the U.S., has determined you can take with you. For example, all passengers are allowed a single carry-on as long as it will fit in the overhead compartment. Now, again, the airline industry kind of got together recently and decided on the ideal largest size that you can take as a carry-on. So it's standardized now. But in addition to that carry-on, you can take on personal items. Personal item would be a purse, a laptop bag, a diaper bag, a baby car seat. Those are things that you can easily either put in the overhead compartment or put under the seat in front of you. And if you have a premium level ticket, first class or business class, then you are allowed one of those larger bags that you can check free of charge if you have a premium ticket. And this also applies to international travel because they're a little bit more lenient on the size of the bags that you can take along with you. But otherwise, if you take on a larger bag, you may be paying baggage fees of $40 or $50 per checked bag per passenger. And you can check a total of 2 bags, paying extra fees, up to 70 pounds each. So before you ever get on board that flight, you might be paying as much as $100 out of pocket just to take your bags with you. Now, by comparison, here's what you can take with you on your Amtrak trip. You will be allowed, first of all, like you are in an airline, a personal bag, a purse, a laptop bag, a backpack, a diaper bag, etc., those kind of things. But in addition to that, you can carry on 2 bags up to 25 inches each that you can stow in the overhead compartment, or under your seat or in the seat in front of you. Now that's 2 carry-on bags, not 1. That's 2. Now in addition to that, you are allowed to check bags up to 28 inches long or 28 inches high, weighing up to 50 pounds each. And all of what I've spoken about so far, the carry-ons, the personal bags, the larger luggage bags, that's all for free. No additional charge above what you paid for your ticket. Now, if you can also, in addition to that baggage, you can check 2 additional bags weighing up to 50 pounds each for a fee of about $20. So you can take up to 4 bags. I don't know why you would want to do that. Some people, maybe they're moving or they're coming back from living in another country or something that nature, and they need the extra baggage space. So in essence, you are allowed to take along that many bags. And you can see that traveling by train is far less expensive when it comes to baggage and a lot more flexible when it comes to your luggage needs. And if you think that's cool, don't forget the fact that they'll even let you bring on a small cooler. And now that means that you could bring along food, beverages that require, cooling and refrigeration. Travelers can use that. You can use ice, you can use dry ice, you can use some of those little freezer blocks that you stick in your freezer the night before, especially if you're transporting things like medications that require a cooler climate. But keep in mind that any cooler that you bring along will have to count as one of your extra or one of your carry-on items. And this is just a tip, okay? This is just the tip of the iceberg of the things that you're allowed to carry on. And later we're going to talk about some of the items that you can take with you when you go in addition to these particular things. Now you might be thinking, I've heard that they have a dining car and a cafe car on board that has snacks and foods, but can I bring food on the train along with me? Passengers are allowed to bring food items and non-alcoholic beverages on board with you. Now, this includes things like sandwiches, chips, snacks, energy bars, nuts, dried fruit. The list could go on and on. Anything. If I'm sitting in coach without access to the dining car, I usually try to bring along like a Subway sandwich or one of those pre-made salads that you get at the supermarket. I've even brought sushi on board. But just keep in mind that Amtrak does not offer any method to heat your food. If you bring something that needs to be heated, like a frozen dinner or something of that nature, or they don't bring, other than a cup of ice, they're not going to give you any way to cool your food. And the only thing they're going to give you to heat your food is a cup of hot water in case you bring along one of those ramen snacks in a cup. But any food or snack that you bring along can be consumed at your seat, or you can go to the observation car, where half of the seats in the observation car are like lounge seats, but the other half of the observation car are dining booths, kind of like you'd find in a restaurant. So you could sit there in a dining booth and enjoy your food at leisure. But one rule of thumb here, be considerate. Be considerate of your fellow passengers, especially if your snack has a strong aroma. I'm thinking of things like sardines or kimchi or anything with a lot of onions in it. So be considerate of the people that are around you. But let's include here a footnote. Okay, there are people who want to know, can I bring along alcoholic beverages? Now, alcoholic beverages are available for purchase in the cafe car. And you can bring certain beverages on board if you are in a sleeper compartment and you decide you have to consume that in your sleeper compartment. You can't bring it into a coach area or a common area. So your personal stock is not permitted in the coach area. Now let's talk about some of the accessories that you might be able to bring along for your own personal comfort while you travel. I mean, there are things that I like to bring along on my trip just to make the trip a little more comfortable. And these are especially important if you're traveling in coach and perhaps on an overnight excursion. Now, the first thing that I like to bring on is a comfy pillow. Now, this is the pillow that I like to bring. Now, it doesn't look like much of a pillow, right? This isn't the pillow. This is the cover for the pillow. It's in a small bag, as you can see, and it's easily stored. I store this in my backpack, but you can unwrap, zip it out of the bag, And once you've zipped it out, it comes out to a nice full size, nice sized little pillow, especially usable and comfortable for a coach seating situation. Now, this pillow is really nice because it's filled with the comfort foam, that you can find in a lot of pillows. In fact, this pillow comes really stuffed with foam. And one of the things I love about it is that if it's too firm for you or too full, there's a little zipper right here on the end, and you can open that and you can remove the stuffing, the part of the stuffing. It's actually double lined, and there's another zipper there underneath. But you can remove some of that stuffing to the point that this pillow becomes comfortable for you. And the nice thing about it is that once I'm done with it, at night, I can fold it back up. I easily fold it back up and put it right back in the bag, and I'm done with it for the night. So you can use that a pillow like that. Some of you may prefer one of the neck pillows or something that supports your neck. To me, those things kind of, strangle me, so I'm not real fond of them. But, do what makes you comfortable. So you can bring along items of that nature. This pillow is a little bit larger than what I would say like a baby pillow, but smaller than a full adult size, like a regular size pillow. Now, one of the next things that's really important to bring, especially if you're a bit cold-natured, is a light blanket. And this is the blanket I like to bring along. It's nice and soft, and it rolls up about the size that the pillow was. And both of these fit really easily into my backpack. Because when sleeping on a train, sometimes, and even on a plane, you need all the extra help that you can get when you are flying or when you're traveling on a plane. Because when you're sleeping on a train or even on a plane, you are in unfamiliar territory. It's kind of like some people can't sleep well in a hotel. They want to be in their own bed. Because when you sleep there, it's not your bed. You're certainly not in the security of your home, and you're surrounded by strangers. There are unfamiliar noises that are going on, strange sounds and strange situations. And on a train and a plane, to a degree, you're exposed to sudden movements, unfamiliar sounds, people getting up in the middle of the night. And when you're on a train, they're going to stop at a lot of stations throughout the night. And if you don't pull those curtains close, the light curtains, you're going to get the light from the train stations passing by or the cities that you're traveling through. And throughout the night, new passengers, especially if you're in coach, new passengers are going to be boarding and unboarding. I actually had a guy get on the train. I had an empty seat next to me. He got on the train at 1 o'clock in the morning and plopped down and started doing his thing about, putting his stuff away and getting all his things arranged. So you get all that kind of movement in the middle of the night. And while the curtains will block out a lot of those noises, and rules do prohibit the use of electronic devices after a certain hour, there will always be unexpected noises and unfamiliar lighting. Now, they do turn out the light at a certain hour, so you will get, that satisfaction at about 10 o'clock. They will turn out the lights. They won't make any further announcements. They tell people to turn off their electronic devices, and, they restrict movement as much as they can. But that's why there are some of the most important things you want to bring. Number one are these babies. I love them. Earplugs. I love it because they block out noises. Lights don't really bother me that much, but noises do. And these earplugs really help. Along with the sleeping mask. If you got a sleeping mask, those also are very handy. I mean, I'm the kind of person, I don't mind a little bit of light. In fact, even when I'm staying in a hotel, I turn the bathroom light on, close the door, almost closed, just to give me enough light so that when I wake up in the middle of the night, I want to know where I'm at. And so, but other people, they want pitch dark. So a mask and these little babies will help you get a good night's rest. And additionally, You always want to have a good pair of slip-on shoes, whether it's slip-on like a house slipper or a flip-flops, something of that nature, a sandal that you can slip into that has a solid sole, so that you can wander about the cabin, passing between the cars, going to the restroom, that kind of thing, without issues. In fact, this is strictly enforced. This is a rule for passengers that you must wear shoes when you wander about the cabin. It's just a smart thing to do. I mean, when you go through the passageways between cars, there are the floor kind of moves. That's where the two train cars connect. And it's a flat surface. You're not going to trip on it or anything in that nature, but there's some moving parts there. It'd be kind of like going up an escalator without your socks or shoes on. You probably wouldn't want to do that. You might snag yourself on some kind of mechanism there. So you want to have a hard sole shoe. Not only that, I mean, imagine going to the restroom with no shoes on right after a 9-year-old boy tried to hit the target in the middle of the night on a moving train. So you can imagine that situation happening. So you always want to wear shoes when you're wandering around the cabin. Additionally, you want to keep safe and make sure you don't step on anything that somebody may have dropped. Nothing worse than stepping in a Lego in the middle of the night, even in your own home. So take the precautions and you're going to have a much more relaxing and comfortable sleep on your way. So let's talk about some of the personal items that you can bring along on your trip. Now, I can't really advise the ladies in the group what they should bring along, especially when it comes to personal care items and even makeup. I'm sharing what I bring along with me and how I manage the ideas of personal care when traveling on a train. So the first thing that I pack is what I call a shaving kit. Ladies, you might call it a makeup bag or cosmetic bag. But one bag has, and I'll show you that, this is the bag that I like to bring along with me. It's a larger shaving kit style bag, and it holds a lot of stuff in it. And it's designed for extended travel. And it holds of everything from, my lotions, hair, if I bring along shampoos, it goes along, a shaving kit, deodorant, all the things that I need, hair trimmers. I need the mustache trimmer, so I'll bring that along. And it has a hook that's really handy because when you're in the restroom, especially on a moving train, it comes in handy to be able to hang this up. But this larger bag has a lot of extras in it. And it's it's a larger bag than what I might actually carry on a train. This is the bag because I actually carry two bags that I would consider like a shaving kit style bag. And this larger bag will have all the things that I might need. And this is the bag that I actually put it into my checked baggage on the train, not on my carry-on. Just my checked baggage. Now, I have a second bag that I actually put into my carry-on or in my backpack. And this is a smaller bag that has a lot of the necessities that I would need just on the train. It's got a hairbrush, it's got toothpaste, toothbrush, all kinds of little goodies that I might need on the train. And I put it into my carry-on and keep it in there for usage. Now, this bag has the bare necessities of what I like to call them. And so I don't, it's easy to pick up, it's easy to move. Now it does have a little bit of a hook here, but actually I feel safe in having the fact that it has a zip on it, a zip top. And if I zip it closed, and even if it falls while I'm using it, you can sit it on the counter, but trains sometimes make, unexpected moves as they go down the tracks, and things might fall on the floor. So if I zip it up, keep it zipped while I'm using it, I'll take what I need out and zip it back up and set it back on the counter. But the key to these two bags is not to overpack what you carry on to the train. And just a note here, most hotels all already have a lot of the things that you're going to need on your trip. They're going to have shampoos, they're going to have body wash, they're going to have conditioners. And if you don't mind using their products, which usually are pretty good these days, you can, avoid carrying a lot of extra items. Now, there's some items that I prefer to bring along with me, so I'll bring along my personal supply, but keep this in mind. This is the size that most airlines are allowing you to bring. I mean, about 2.5 ounces? Now, on a train, this is the size that you can bring with you. You can bring a large size, a full size, because there are no restrictions on the size of your, even if you have it in your carry-on. So keep that in mind when you bring along items to use for personal care. Now, when it comes to electronics, you can bring along just about any kind of electronics that you can pack into your bags. In fact, I know one guy, he travels on the train a lot, and he brings along his PlayStation. Don't ask me why, but you can bring along laptops, tablets, headphones, cell phones, just about anything that you can name in the electronic arena, you can bring along with you as long as you are up to packing it around. But just remember, whatever you pack will add weight to your luggage or your carry-on. I carry on most of my electronic stuff in a small bag, but here's some of the things that I like to bring with me. The first thing I like to take along is a small accessory bag. And this is for the small stuff, okay? This is for chargers, power cables, all the things, the little things that are easy to get lost in a larger bag. So if I want to take a few extra things, this is what I bring along with me. Now, I also like to consolidate items that I choose to bring. For example, I don't bring along, I used to be a professional photographer, and I have all the camera gear, the cameras, the lenses, the digital DSLR cameras, the tripods, the lighting, the extra, flash units, all the fun stuff. But that just adds extra weight to my journey. It's overkill as well. And when you really think about it, today's cell phones have some pretty amazing cameras. And even on my tablet, I have a video camera, and I can take stills or videos. But most cell phone cameras these days take great images. They can even do awesome videos. They do high-res photographs. Not only that, but on a professional level, if you've ever dabbled into kind of the professional end of things or as a hobbyist, they'll even shoot raw images, which allows you a lot of flexibility when it comes to the time that you're ready to edit those images. But unless you're going on a professional photo shoot, bringing all that big, heavy gear is just added weight. And it's a safety concern that you have to worry about all along the way. So I do take a secondary accessory bag, for example, that packs along some of my accessories. And it's small, it's lightweight, it's easy to handle. I put this bag inside this bag. And show you some of the things I have in the bag here. For example, I have the ever so common little tripod that, everybody's got one of these. It transforms, it's a tripod, but it also transforms into a selfie stick if you want to use it for that. So, it has that capability. I have all kinds of little other gadgets. This one sticks to the window if I'm in a sleeper compartment, and I can strap my camera to that, and, it does all the photography for me. This is a really handy little thing. I don't know where I came up with this. I think actually somebody gave it to me. And it's a little stand that's great for sitting your cell phone right there, and you put it on your tray table and you can watch videos, watch movies, anything that you like. It's kind of a hands-free type device. that fits into the camera. So those are some of the things that I carry along with me. Now, one of the things that I really, one of the big transformations for me electronically was buying one of these little gadgets. Now you're sitting there going, hold it, that's just a jump drive, right? Well, yes and no. It's a jump drive because it has a standard USB connection on one end that connects to just about any type of laptop or some type of electronic device. But on the other end is a standard USB-C connection that is able to connect to a cell phone or is able to connect to a tablet. It's great for downloading images, moving data from one device to another without having to upload it to a cloud and wait for to download. You're not dependent on an internet connection when it comes to that. So that is a great little thing to have around, a great handy tool to keep close by. Now, let's talk, for example, about power. Actually, before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about cameras again. We talked about cell phone cameras and their capabilities. Now, I have a little, Motorola Razr. It's a flip phone. Love this thing. And it's a great, added tool when I get ready to do photography and so forth. Now, if I stop at a train station and I step off the train and I go out there and I want to do a couple of photographs, what if I drop this phone and it breaks? I've not only lost my camera, I've not only lost my connectivity, I've lost my cell phone as well. So instead of endangering the loss of this particular item, I kept my old Motorola phone and I use this as my backup to do most of my photography with, a lot of my videos and so forth. And so if I drop it and break it, no big loss, I still have my other. Redundancy is the key. So 2 cell phones sounds a little bit excessive, but it's always good to have a backup. Now, let's talk power. At some point, everybody has to recharge something, whether it's a phone, a tablet, a headphone, earplugs, whatever. That's why Amtrak has 2 110-volt electrical outlets at every seat in coach to share between the 2 passengers. Now, because there are going to be times when you have to plug things in and, you don't want to hog all the electrical outlets. You want to be able to share those, especially when there are 2 people sitting there in the same aisle using those 110-volt adapter or plug-ins. And so that's why I always make sure that I take along one of these. It is a 110-volt adapter. This is very simple. It's not real complex. It's not one of the international type adapters, but it plugs into any standard 110 outlet, and it at the same time it gives you the capability of 1, 2, 3 different 110-volt plugins along with 3 USB connections. Now, I've even had passengers sitting next to me and they saw that adapter plugged in and they said, hey, can I plug my cell phone in? And I'm like, sure, because it's a true necessity these days. And some people even take it along these remote chargers, heavy power users. So they make sure that their system doesn't go down. And by the way, there are also power adapters or outlets in the observation car. So if you need to plug in while you're in the observation car, you can do that. Now, I've had people ask me, well, where do you put all this stuff? Now, you can take it along like, a backpack, but a lot of other things go into my backpack. So sometimes I need another bag to carry along with me. That's why I carry what I like to call a pocket duffel bag. That kind of sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? How can a duffel bag fit in your pocket? This is my pocket duffel bag, okay? Very simple looking. It's very small. Like how do you put in all your electronic devices into that? Well, very simple. When it's not in use, it folds up to this pocket size. I can easily store away. When I'm ready to use it, I simply, unsnap it. And out of that little bitty pocket unfolds a standard size small duffel bag. And There, it's supposed to be easy. There we go. And it comes completely undone. The pocket folds inside. And there's my duffel bag. It has a shoulder strap with it. I use it as an accessory bag. I put, my, this electronic, the accessory bag in there. I put my shaving kit in there. I put snacks in there. And I fill that sucker up when I get ready to go. And it slides neatly under the seat right in front of me on the train. So it's easily accessible and usable. And it's a great place to store things like snacks and wipes, Kleenex, anything that you think you might need on the train. And one of the most important things to remember about using electronics on board, and that is not everyone is going to appreciate your genre of music or your taste in entertainment like movies or videos. So you want to make sure that you pack something that gives you the ability to enjoy your electronics privately, like a set of noise-canceling headphones, or I like these. I use earplugs. These are noise-canceling earplugs, JVC brand, and like everybody's got some of these, they just plug into the wall. They're rechargeable. They're easy to use, easy to store. It saves on a lot of space. I'm not a headphone person. I don't like things wrapped around my head. But in fact, after 10 p.m. at night, your train car, especially if you're in coach, is going to go dark. You won't be allowed to use any electronic devices. It's going to go dark. All the lights are going to go out. They won't make any announcements. And that is, by the way, strictly enforced so people can get some sleep. Now, if you decided you want to stay up and you want to watch a movie or you want to play some video games, go to the observation car. That place is open all night long. And after about 1:30 or 2 in the morning, it's full of a bunch of teenagers. But of course, there are other necessary items, electrical items that you may want to bring along, like a hair dryer, a curling iron, etc. And all of these require power, and they can be used on board. Although I wouldn't recommend trying to use a hot curling iron on a moving train. That's just me, but take your life in your own hands. Some of you might be saying, I've got some special medical needs. I have some special mobility issues, or I have this medical device I have to bring with me. So when it comes to medical devices, there are very few limitations of things that you can bring along when you travel on Amtrak. In fact, if you're challenged with mobility issues on the superliners, which is the double-decker long-distance cars, the lower level has an area, a portion of that downstairs level is specifically designed for people who have mobility issues or other physical challenges. It's a full accessible area for people to travel in. And while there are a number of bathrooms on every car, there's like 5 bathrooms in every superliner car, that is. There is also an accessible restroom. It's about 3 times the size of an average restroom in the passenger car, dedicated to people who have mobility issues. So let's talk about what you can bring on board when it comes to, medical devices or equipment. You can bring almost any device or equipment to aid in your mobility or health concerns. There are limitations. I mean, you can't bring on an X-ray machine or a full magic lung device or something. But this includes, but not limited to, you can bring aboard wheelchairs, walkers, canes and crutches, or many other devices. Now, if you've got hair this color, like me, if I slept through the night in the coach car, I would keep the entire car awake with my snoring, okay? So I've been told. I don't stay awake to see if I snore, but I've heard. So I actually have to sleep with what's called a CPAP nightly breathing machine. And believe it or not, this is the breathing machine right here. I'll show it to you. It's a little breathing machine that sits on the nightstand, and it's very quiet. It doesn't make a lot of noise. But I need this in order to breathe well and not snore and not have breathing issues. So I slept. I went on a long trip last summer, and I slept in coach 5 different nights. And I used this machine every one of those nights in coach to sleep with. I packed it in my carry-on with all the tubes. I've got a bag. I have this little tie bag here. I put all my, the cables and the hoses and mask and all the accessories that I need into this bag. And I put this into my backpack, and I put it down into the bottom of the backpack, and I packed it all in there. And at night, I set this up on my tray table in front of my seat. I plugged it in, and I never had an issue. There were no complaints about it. People didn't look at you weird. Everybody's in their own little world. In fact, this is a great excuse to demand a window seat, by the way, because the plug-ins that you need, the electrical plug, is right next to the window. And I told them, hey, if I don't sit in the window seat, I'm going to stretch all these cables and plugs and all this stuff and hoses across my sleeping companion there at the seat companion, and I'm sure they don't want that. So it was a good excuse to get the window seat every time that I rode. But now one time I didn't get the window seat, but I had a very understanding friend. He knew he couldn't see anything out the window at nighttime. So I said, hey, when it comes to nighttime, I like to sit at the window seat because I have this device. And he was more than willing to exchange places with me. Now, you can also bring along any necessary prescription medicines. You can pack it in your carry-on and bring it along with you as you go. Now, if you're close to my age, or maybe even a little younger, you might be familiar with one of these. It's a pill caddy. That's right. A lot of people use them so they can keep track of all the medications that they take. And it allows you to bring along all the medicines for a full week. Now, 2 things that I try to consider when I think about things that I'm going to take with me, even plane or train. I think about size, and I think about weight, and I think about usability. This does take up a lot of room. And by the way, anytime I carry a pill caddy, I always enclose it in a Ziploc baggie so that in case one of these little doors pops open, I'm not going to lose all my medication or have to chase it through my luggage. So that's a helpful hint that I've learned the hard way. So one thing that I found recently, and I found these at Walmart, by the way, and all these items that I've listed today, I'll try to include those. I'll link in those so that you can take advantage of those. I found this smaller version of the pill caddy that allows me to pack all the same number of medicines, all the same number of days, and so forth. And it's smaller, lighter weight. And you say, well, lighter weight, that can't be that much difference. And you think, well, what's the big difference between, this one and this one, besides a little bit of a size? Well, the nice thing about this one, let's say you're only going on a 3-day trip. This one pops apart. You can pop it apart very easily. And if you're only going to go on a 3 or 4 day trip, you don't have to take the whole thing. You can only take whatever you need. So it conforms to the size and needs of your particular trip. Very handy, very practical, very useful. Now, any form of illicit or what we might call recreational drugs, even if they're legal in your state, are not allowed on Amtrak. Although some of my seatmates did share gummies back and forth with the rest of the passengers in the nearby seats, and they were really happy the rest of the ride. But as you might expect, illicit or recreational drugs are not allowed on the train. And by the way, you may not see it, but there are armed marshals on every car in the train. And if they detect that you're using some illicit form of drug, or they're, detect something going on that shouldn't be going on, you will be put off at the next stop. As you might expect, also, smoking anything on the train is not allowed. Now, there are breaks, about every hour or so, they'll have an extended break of 20 minutes or more, and you can get off the train, stretch your legs, smoke them if you got them, and enjoy that part of your trip. But again, illicit drugs are not permitted. Now, finally, let's talk about the items for the active traveler. And when I say the active traveler, let's talk about sporting equipment that you can take along with you. Let's see if we can come up with a list of the things that are allowed, that you are permitted to take with you on the train. Now, although there are some size and weight restrictions, you can take along just about anything that doesn't explode, shoot, or spill toxic chemicals in the train. So now there are items like combat equipment that are restricted. Things like nightsticks, brass knuckles, weapons do have some restrictions. Even karate or martial arts weapons are restricted. So you might want to check directly with Amtrak if you think something you're carrying with you might have some kind of restriction. Now, as just a final thought here, I want to address one area that I get a lot of questions about, and that is I want to address something when it comes to the form of personal identification and money issues on the train. Now, I have yet to be asked to show my identification when buying a ticket, when checking in or checking baggage, or even boarding or deboarding Amtrak. Now, you might think that's a bit unusual. But as long as you're not causing trouble, buying alcohol, or present yourself as a danger to other passengers, you may never have to show your identification. Now, they do request and ask that you bring your ID along with you. And while they request that, I have never had to present that to an Amtrak conductor or a ticket agent. Another thing that I get asked a lot is, what do I need to take with me as far as purchasing power? I need to bring cash, credit cards, debit cards. What do they take on board? As a general rule, cash and most credit cards and debit cards are acceptable forms of payment anywhere on and off the train. When I say off the train, I'm talking about the train station and the area vendors around that area. It's a good idea, however, to bring along some cash for several reasons. Trains very often travel through remote areas that are sometimes out of reach of things like internet service. So sometimes it limits their ability to process a credit or debit card. In fact, I ate dinner one night in the dining car, and I was going to pay for it. I was a coach passenger, and I was going to pay for it with a credit card. And they ran the card, and they accepted, my payment. And I guess it stored the information in the machine because it took over a week for that charge to show up in my account. I guess they had to wait till they got a little closer to a major city or area where there was, internet connectivity, so they could download all the information that's stored on their machine. But you'll also need cash when their credit card machines malfunction. And sometimes that happens now, especially in the cafe car, for example. You want a drink, you want to grab a snack, you're not going to be able to unless you have cash at times. And in addition, it's a good idea to bring cash along for tipping. Now, you don't have to tip everybody on the train, but if you're going to dine in the dining car, it's a good idea to tip your waiter or waitress. If you go to the snack bar, they always have a tip jar there. And if you have a personal attendant, room attendant, traveling in a sleeper car, it's always a good idea to tip them, as well as the red cap service that helps you load and unload luggage. Well, I think it's safe to say that there's no other form of travel like train travel. And for many years, I studied Spanish. In fact, I've taught Spanish. And I'm fluent in the Spanish language. A professor of mine, a Spanish professor, used to say that Spanish is like every other language in the world. It's also like some other languages in the world. And it's also like no other language in the world. And the same can be said about train travel. There are some things about train travel that are just like flying on a plane. But there are also some very unique things when it comes to traveling by train. And I hope this video has helped to share some of that with you. And I hope this video has helped you as you get ready to prepare for your journey on Amtrak, even if it's your very first time. And if you are an experienced Amtrak traveler and you have discovered other helpful tips and tricks, leave them in the comments below. We can all learn from your experience as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of our future videos, and especially when I take off on my big adventure this summer. So, all aboard!